Attention, News 4 Jax starts now.
New developments in the last few hours about the shooting death of this 7-year-old boy. The Jacksonville Sheriff's Office is closing the case without making an arrest. Well, Zashawn Gallen was caught in the crossfire in a drive-by shooting last February outside a home on Mount Herman Street in Durkeeville. And although no one has been arrested for the crime, JSO has cleared the case. Right now, police haven't explained why the case has been closed. Here's what we know. Through the end of 2018, Gallen's death was listed as pending classification on the JSO database, but it was recently moved to the non-murder homicides list. The 7-year-old was shot and killed as someone in a vehicle and another person in the yard exchanged gunfire. Police quickly found the SUV they suspect was involved in Gallen's death. Now, cases are routinely considered exceptionally cleared when the person responsible is in custody on unrelated charges or dead. Still ahead, News 4 Jax reporter Eric Avanier is looking into why the case has been cleared. He'll have a live report and an update at 5 o'clock. A heartbreaking story out of Live Oak. 3 young children found dead in a freezer. Deputies say they somehow got trapped inside. We're told they were 1, 4, and 6 years old. Deputies were called to a home on 173rd Place around 6 p.m. yesterday. When they arrived, family members were performing CPR on the children. The Suwannee County Sheriff's Office says the kids were playing outside in the yard when they climbed inside of a chest freezer and suffocated. They died at the hospital. Ahead at 5, News 4 Jax reporter Zach Lashway is live from the scene. He has an update on the investigation. We'll look for that story at 5. The man a New Jersey prosecutor says is responsible for an hours-long standoff at a New Jersey UPS facility was shot, arrested, and taken to a local hospital. A prosecutor says the gunman barricaded himself inside with 2 women who worked at the business, while the other 32 employees were evacuated to a nearby hotel. He adds there was apparently a relationship between the man and one of the women. The women are not believed to be seriously hurt. No one on the suspect's condition. No word, that is, on the suspect's condition. Well, a couple of hours ago, Republican Brian Kemp was sworn in as Georgia's 83rd governor. The 56-year-old took the oath of office in front of an enthusiastic crowd, including lawmakers, his family, and members of his new cabinet. Kemp has promised to pursue conservative policies such as tougher abortion restrictions and religious freedom. Kemp was at the center of a controversial election in which he narrowly beat Democrat Stacey Abrams in a heated runoff. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has cut his Middle East trip short because of a death in his family. He met Saudi Arabia's king and crown prince in Riyadh early this morning. The royal family and the U.S. State Department agreed on the need for a continued de-escalation in Yemen. This was Pompeo's first meeting with the royal family since Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi was killed inside the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. The journalist had written columns critical of the royal family, and U.S. intelligence say that the crown prince ordered Khashoggi's murder. Pompeo reportedly discussed his death, but details of the conversation were not released. Well, the government shutdown enters its 24th day, making it the longest in U.S. history. It appears neither the president or Democrats are getting any closer to budging on their demands. Well, this morning, President Trump seemed to back off the prospects of declaring a national emergency to fund his promised border wall. Meanwhile, some federal workers missed their first paychecks Friday. Camilla Bernal has the latest on the shutdown stalemate from Washington.
Snowy scenes in Washington, mirroring the frozen state of negotiations over the government shutdown.
Make no mistake, to me, this shutdown is caused by President Trump.
The Democrats are stopping us.
President Trump began week 4 of the shutdown, backing off a recent threat to use executive power to fund his $5.7 billion border wall.
I'm not looking to call a national emergency. This is so simple, you shouldn't have to.
But any hope of progress to reopen the government this week appears slim, with no meetings scheduled or new proposals on the table. Meanwhile, millions of Americans across the country are feeling the sting, including at the nation's busiest airports.
TSA workers just below us, assisting travelers, making sure that that we are safe as we travel to Washington, D.C., and are doing it without a paycheck.
Roughly 51,000 TSA screeners are working without pay. Hundreds have called out sick since this shutdown began, causing backups at some major airports. Lines sneaked all the way to baggage claim at Hartsfield-Jackson Airport in Atlanta on Monday. Air traffic controllers also feeling the effects.
Morale is just funneling down, just as fast as you can imagine.
Despite the understaffing issues, officials say it's still safe to fly. Travelers just might need to budget more wait time.
We're going to keep everybody safe. That's what we do.
Camila Bernal, Channel 4, the local station.
More national news now. Nearly 32,000 teachers and staff in Los Angeles walked off the job today, affecting nearly 600,000 students. It comes weeks after talks between the school district and union over how much to pay teachers. It's the first strike in 30 years for the district and the second largest in the nation. Teachers are demanding higher salaries, smaller class sizes, and more counselors and nurses. Students were still in class despite the strike. An attempt to weaken the Obamacare contraception mandate is halted. This comes as a result of a decision from a California federal district court judge. The decision comes one day before the new rules were set to go into effect. A judge said in his ruling that states face potentially dire public health and fiscal consequences from the implementation of the final rules. Well, this injunction is only for the 13 states that were behind the lawsuit. Washington, D.C. was also a part of that group. Now to a health alert. The flu outbreak is still widespread in 30 states, including Florida. This is happening despite the CDC reporting a small decrease in new cases. Georgia is now seeing regional influenza activity. Doctors say getting a flu shot is the best way to avoid getting the virus. The CDC estimates 7 million people in the U.S. have gotten sick so far this season. Well, of those, between 69 and 84,000 people have been hospitalized. Flu season usually peaks between December and February. A New York woman with a rare blood type was a perfect match for a toddler battling cancer in South Florida. The woman is giving the little girl 2 units of her blood. The FDA still has to approve the transfer. The child needs more blood, though. The woman would donate more, but she's pregnant right now. She stored her own blood while pregnant in case she needed a transfusion during delivery. Let's check now headlines county by county. Joy is here with us. Tell us about stories that's happening in your neighborhood, Joy.
Rob, we're beginning in Nassau County, where the county's budget director, Justin Stankiewicz, has been fired. This comes after an investigation discovered $1,000 disappeared from an emergency fund. This investigation started about a month ago into the loss of money. According to the Fernandina Beach News leader, Stankiewicz paid the money back out of his personal checking account. When he was fired, his annual salary was a little more than $16,000. The investigation is still ongoing. In St. Johns County, police need your help identifying 2 people seen shoplifting from a jewelry store in St. Augustine. Investigators say they stole 9 sets of earrings a couple weeks ago from the Silver Creek Jewelry Store, valued at $178. The store sits on St. George Street in the historic downtown district. If you know who these 2 people are, please call police immediately. And staying in St. Johns County, the sheriff's office is remembering a deputy whose life was cut short by a drunk driver 9 years ago today. The driver was traveling in the wrong direction on I-295 near Bay Meadows Road when he slammed into Deputy James Lewis Anderson Jr.'s patrol car. The deputy died at the hospital. The driver was sentenced to prison for 15 years. Deputy Anderson had served with the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office for 2 years before his death. And those are your headlines county by county. Rob, back to you.
All right, thank you, Joy. Making roads safer for all drivers, but especially truckers. The Florida Department of Transportation is scheduled to install a new system this week. It will let truckers know how many parking spots are available at rest stops to keep drivers from parking along the highway. Even better news, the Department of Transportation says it shouldn't have any major impact on traffic. News4JAX reporter Jennifer Reddy explains how the nearly $4 million system works.
When big rigs travel through Northeast Florida, drivers are required to stop and rest after driving for a certain number of hours. But there are not always safe options to park. The Florida Department of Transportation says sometimes rest stops fill up, and truck drivers end up parking illegally on the ramp or side of the interstates.
To avoid that, the Florida Department of Transportation is installing the truck parking availability system. They will be installing signs before the rest stops, alerting drivers just how many spaces are open here. That's thanks to sensors that will be installed at the rest stops. FDOT says the goal is to alert drivers so that they're able to plan ahead where they can safely stop.
A spokesperson for the Florida Trucking Association says installing the system is a small step in the right direction, but more measures need to be taken to provide more safe stopping options.
It's only a small piece of the puzzle. We desperately need more capacity for truck parking. This will enable drivers to more successfully use what is available.
The new parking system will be installed on I-95 in Nassau and St. Johns counties, I-10 in Madison and Baker counties, and I-75 in Alachua, Columbia, and Hamilton counties. Jennifer Reddy, Channel 4, the local station.
Well, now that the oil market is regaining strength, gas prices are back on the rise nationwide. But here in Florida, prices are nearly 10 cents under the national average. According to AAA, the state average per gallon is $2.13. That's below the national average of $2.24. Florida drivers are paying 32 cents less per gallon than this time last year. The most expensive places to buy gas in Florida include Panama City at $2.45. Well, ahead in the rundown, getting your debt under control. What financial experts say about paying expenses and savings. Plus, a shooting at a mall in North Carolina. What authorities are saying about a motive. And new details about the kidnapping of a Wisconsin teenager. What a newly released criminal complaint reveals about the 21-year-old suspect. That story's next.